In all the turmoil of the present crisis, many people may have lost sight of exactly what it is that Sikhs in India have been fighting for. Karan Thapa looks back at the origins and causes of the Sikh movement.
The origins of the modern Sikh movement can be traced back some 35 years to India's independence. It was at the time of partition and the mass migration of people when the first incident occurred which began the steady build-up of Sikh resentment with India's national government. The creation of two countries in the subcontinent resulted in the breakup of the Punjab, for 5 centuries the homeland of the Sikh people. Faced with the chance of living in India or Pakistan, the Sikhs opted for India. They did this in the belief that Nehru had promised them a separate Sikh state within India. In the event, the Punjab state they ended up with was far removed from what they had expected, and power over their own lives lay firmly in the hands of the central government.
Sikhs are not happy in Punjab because all the assurances given by the national leader before partition to the Sikh community that they will have autonomous power in Punjab were not given. Rather, on the contrary, all the powers were controlled by the center and the province's power were absolutely cut down. And Sikh feel they are betrayed, and under these circumstances they cannot solve any problem of their own community as all the power lies in the hand of the center.
Left with the feeling of having been deceived over the issue of a special homeland, Sikh feelings of dissent were further strengthened by succeeding acts of the new Indian government. The Golden Temple has for over a century been the symbol of the separate Sikh religious identity, and it was this distinctiveness that was the first to be affected by a government act. In 1956, Parliament passed the Hindu Code Bill. This act brought traditional Hindu practices into line with the laws of modern India. But while the government exempted Muslims and Christians from the new law, it specifically included Sikhs within its ambit. The result has been to make Sikhs feel that their religion is being absorbed within Hinduism.
The Sikhs, to use a not very nice word, feel extremely swamped by the Hindu majority. Consider 17 million against 700 million. In fact, the official policy of the Indian government seems to be that Sikhs have no separate identity, that they are part of the Hindu mainstream. And there is a very, very real danger of pressure on Sikhs to give up their separate symbols, to give up their religion, and a pressure that really strikes at the root of the very roots of the separate Khalsa identity. So Sikhs feel very swamped and worried indeed.
The next major blow to Sikh sensitivities came over the issue of their language, Punjabi. In the late 50s and early 60s, supporters of India's different languages clashed with the government in a series of bloody riots that shook the subcontinent. Right across the length and breadth of the country, language controversies exploded onto the streets. The language movements were demanding the redrawing of state boundaries to coincide with linguistic areas.
Ambulances had to force their way through.
The government quickly responded by creating new states throughout India which did reflect language boundaries. But it dragged its feet over Sikh demands for a wholly Punjabi-speaking state to replace the then bilingual Punjab. And when the government did finally concede, the Sikhs felt they'd been shortchanged. All that was done was that the Punjab was itself split into Haryana, a mainly Hindi-speaking state, and a new Punjab, now a Punjabi-speaking state. But many Sikhs felt that several major Punjabi-speaking areas, some of which had not been part of the original Punjab, should also have been included in the new state. And to add insult to injury, Chandigarh, the capital of the Punjab, was not made a part of the new state, but a separate union territory.
Sikhs are not happy the Punjabi state given by the central government to them because they haven't fulfilled their promise. Sikhs feel they are cheated, and those promises central government made, they were not fulfilled. Instead of decreasing the Sikh grievances, present Punjabi state has created more grievances from Sikh side. So Sikhs are unhappy. They haven't given their capital Chandigarh. They haven't given their Punjabi speaking areas, those who are excluded Punjab, the present Punjab. So they feel their problem is not solved. That is, instead of decreasing, it is increased.
These feelings of resentment with the national government came to a head in 1973. In that year, the Sikh political party, the Akali Dal, formulated a charter of demands known as the Anandpur Sahib resolution, which they felt would resolve Sikh grievances. And under the leadership of the Akali Dal, the Sikh movement was born to try and achieve these demands. The first set of demands in the Anandpur Sahib resolution were about preserving the separate identity of Sikhism in India. To achieve this, the Akali Dal demanded that all Gurdwaras should be brought under their control. And they also demanded a series of symbolic acts, such as the naming of trains after Sikh institutions and radio transmissions of services from the Golden Temple. The second set of demands in the Anandpur Sahib resolution were about securing the regional position of the Punjab. And to do this, the Akali Dal demanded the creation of a Greater Punjab, which incorporated all Punjabi-speaking areas. But the most important demand was for virtual autonomy for the Punjab. Except for internal communication, foreign affairs and defence, the Sikhs wanted everything else. This meant control over the entire economy of the Punjab and power over the machinery of the state.
Those demands represent the basic goals of the Sikh movement. But it's been 11 years since the Anandpur Sahib resolution and these goals are still unrealized. It's this failure that split the Sikh movement into groups, and although the goals remain the same, in other respects they're very different. The Sikh movement is divided into two factions. The moderate wing is represented by the Akali Dal party, led by Harchand Singh Longowal. There are several extremist factions, but the main one was led by Sanjarnail Singh Bhindranwale and his supporters. There's little real difference in the goals of these groups, it's in their strategy that they differ. The moderates have always been prepared to enter talks with the government and to compromise in order to come to a settlement. The extremists, on the other hand, have resorted to terrorist tactics and have refused to compromise on any demands. There is one further political element in the Sikh movement, the Khalistan party, based here in England. The goals of the Khalistan party are quite different from the groups in India. Khalistanis want nothing less than an independent and sovereign Sikh state called Khalistan. The idea of Khalistan has very little support in India, because even the most extreme demands of the Sikh movement there maintain the idea of a state within the sovereign territory of India. So Khalistan remains a fanciful dream of a few exiled Sikhs in England.
We move now to exclusive film of the government's attitude to the Punjab problem. On the day she sent troops into the Golden Temple, Mrs. Gandhi addressed the nation on Indian television. Here's an extract from her speech.
The reality that has emerged is not the adequacy or otherwise of the terms of settlement offered by the government on the various Akali Dal demands, but the fact that the agitation is now in the hands of a few who have scant respect for the unity and integrity of our country, or concern for communal harmony, or the continued economic progress of the Punjab. Every 3 or 4 months a new morcha is started, and Punjab is torn by senseless and tragic strife. Terrorists and anti-national elements have gained the upper hand. Innocent people, Sikhs and Hindus, have been killed. There is arson, looting and sabotage. Holy shrines have been turned into shelters for criminals and murderers. Their sanctity as places of worship has been undermined. A deliberate and systematic campaign is spreading bitterness and hatred between Hindus and Sikhs. And worst of all, the unity and integrity of our motherland is being openly challenged by a few who find refuge in holy shrines. In spite of this vitiated atmosphere, we kept talking to Akali leaders in the hope of reaching an understanding. To our great disappointment, issues could not be clinched. Whenever a settlement seemed in sight, they came up with fresh demands or hardened their attitude on matters earlier agreed on. The leadership which started the agitation seems to have lost the will and perhaps the capacity to control its consequences. What do we do in this new situation? I should like to clarify 2 points. First, in spite of all the disappointment experienced during the last 2 years of talks and negotiations with the representatives of the Akali Dal, I still appeal to them to accept the framework of the settlement government has outlined. If any misgivings or doubts on any issue remain, let us sit around the table and find a solution.